Hey everyone, I wanted to share with you my pattern for making these washable, reusable, nose shapeable medical masks that everyone's trying to make. I looked at a couple different video tutorials and this one made the most sense to me and also has that spot where you can add the filter. So here goes. These are the materials you need, and honestly I had so much scrap fabric that's what I'm going off of. I also heard that Joann Fabrics, at least in Granville, the Granville location, they are all out of elastic, but they're giving away 1 yard of fabric per customer. So if you don't have scrap fabric, you can get some free stuff that way. So I have pre-cut 3 pieces of fabric. All are 6 by 9 inches. I have 2 coordinating for the inside and then 1 that's going to be used for the outside. That kind of matches. The second material you need is elastic. It's kind of hard to come by right now, so you can definitely use just fabric in place of that. That would be, tied in the back. And the third and last material is pipe cleaner. I had these left over from our kids' Valentine's project, and I'm just bending them in half and cutting them, so half of a pipe cleaner. And that is it. I've got my iron set up, and you can actually do all of your ironing at the same time instead of sewing and then coming back to the iron. You can do it all at once. So your 2 pieces of fabric that match that we're going to use for the inside, I folded once, just did a quick iron, fold again so it makes a clean line, iron again, and then repeat that on that second piece of fabric that is going to be used for the inside. So now I've got those pieces both right here, and I'm just gonna make a quick seam right at 1/4 inch all the way down the piece of fabric. No, I did not backstitch either of these interior pieces because they're going to be sewn into the mask as a whole, so it really won't matter on these ends. So next here, I'm going to take my original 6 by 9 piece of fabric that I didn't make any stitches to. I've also got 2 pieces of elastic that I cut to 7 inches long each, and I made tiny little knots. Let's see if that can focus in on there. Tiny little knots on the end, and that's just gonna help make sure that after I stitch over it, there's no way that it pulls out just because this elastic is so small. So I'm going to kind of like loop it so the knotted edges are facing out and the elastic as a whole is sitting on the fabric. So the knotted edges are facing out and the elastic as a whole is sitting on the fabric. Then we're gonna overlap it with our pretty side facing down this time. And then just holding it the opposite way, pretty side facing down. And that's gonna kind of create this flap that they need to get the filters in. So once you have it all setting like that, I put 4 pins just to hold the elastic in place. And then we'll get sewing again. Okay, so here's the finished product. After I have it pinned, you can kind of see these 2 little elastic pieces are sticking up, and then I just use this 3rd pin to hold down the flap so it doesn't get in the way. And I start on the shorter side, about 2/3 down. This starting side, I'm actually going to leave a gap so I can turn it inside out. So that we have the prettier sides of the fabric facing out. And so let me get this repositioned and I will start. So I'm going to start with a couple of back stitches just to make sure these pieces don't come loose, and then I head right down to the corner. Sometimes I pop it up just to make sure my elastic isn't gonna wiggle at all. Once I go over the elastic, I'll back stitch it again and then go forward. So it actually has about 3 stitches on that small elastic piece, just to make sure, since it will have some extra tension. And I don't cut my string at all, just turn the fabric around. Same thing on this corner, I don't cut the string at all, just turn it around. Make sure my elastic is in place. And then back stitch once I've gone over it, and forward stitch. And down this last long side. This is our last elastic piece, and it's important to remember to only sew about 1/3 of the fabric right here. So I want to give myself enough space so that I can turn it inside out once I'm done with these stitches. Back stitch again. Forward stitch. Once I'm over this piece and I know it's secure, I'll back stitch just to finish it up, cut the thread. So we're left with this little pocket, and we can turn the fabric inside out. So I usually, let me turn this around now. I get the corners out first and then wiggle the rest through, and that seems to work the best for me. Again, I don't know what I'm doing here, so if you have advice or ways that I could do things better, I've seen a lot of videos using those cool, almost like office paperclip style instead of my old school pins, but I'm really not a part of the sewing world and I don't know about all these cool new tools. So we've got it almost out. The cool part about this filter flap is it helps get your corners out too. So there you have it with your flap, and I'm going to get ready for the next.
On that part, how I said I like this because you only have to iron once, I totally lied. So here is that portion that we did not sew, so we could turn the fabric inside out, and or right side out, I guess. So here's that little, I don't know, 2-inch gap. So I have the fabric folded over, my iron is hot, and I'm just ironing it down so that it makes it a little bit easier when I sew the perimeter. For the nose piece, we are using leftover KidCraft pipe cleaner. So I just took one, bent it in half, and I'm cutting it with my craft scissors, and it is going to go in at the top here. So we want to make sure that this flap opens like upwards so that the filters don't have a chance to fall out at all, even though they have this second flap that's going to keep them in place. So I just stick it up in there,
make sure it's right there towards the top where I can feel it. And make a so the pipe cleaner is right here, my flap is towards the top, and I'm going to make a stitch just straight across to hold that pipe cleaner in at the top. So as you can see along the top, I have an extra stitch here, and that is just holding that pipe cleaner in place. Next, I'm going to make 2 pleats and pin them on the side. This side is still open from when we turned it right side out, but after we make our pleats, we'll make the finishing sew around the perimeter, and then it will be finished. So I already made 1 pleat, and then I'm just going to make a second. I've seen people doing more than 2 pleats, but they're kind of a pain in the butt, so I figure the fewer, the better. So here's that second one. Again, those pins that I saw, or the clips that I've seen people using on other tutorials, look like they would be a dream in this scenario, but work with what you got, because Amazon takes way too long these days. Then for this final stitch, I usually start right here in this corner, and we'll go all the way around. So I will readjust it here, and I'm just doing a 1/4 inch like all of our other sews. And this one I think is very important. Sorry, this angle's pretty pitiful. This one's pretty important to do that back stitch, since this is the final stitch for a mask. And just for safe measure, we'll go a few stitches this way and finish it off. Cut these few little strings from where we started off, and there you have your reusable, filterable nose formable medical mask. A couple random last thoughts that I forgot to throw in there while I was doing this. My nursing friend suggested that you definitely use 2 different types of fabric for the front and the back, so that they're not getting it mixed up and using the dirty side near their mouth. I think if you're doing this filter version, it would be harder to get that confused with, but still it seems like it would be helpful. And then secondly and lastly, don't forget about those guy nurse and doctor friends. Naturally, I have like all these flower, pretty pink patterns, but I'm digging and finding some things that are definitely more gender neutral, or that could be worn by those guy doctors too.